Hi there, and welcome to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and this week on the show, I'm joined by Stephen Tai, who's the founder of Ocean King, a business that started with a van selling prawns and grew into a 32,000 square foot food distribution company. Stephen shares his inspiring journey from being a Vietnamese refugee to leading a successful business. And he takes quite a detour to talk about that whole experience. And it's well worth listening to because he's bringing that back as to how it underpins the core purpose and the core values of the business. And he discusses the importance of those core values, strategic growth and delegating tasks. And key turning points along the journey include joining an entrepreneur peer group and implementing EOS and traction type methodologies. And Stephen also offers valuable advice and book recommendations for other entrepreneurs. So make sure you don't miss this or any other future episodes of ScaleUp Radio by subscribing to it wherever you like to listen to your podcast. You can find us in all the usual places. You can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up story like Stephen's, and you can find out how in the show notes. So for now, tune in for an episode filled with insights and inspiration and real authenticity. Welcome to ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by Stephen Tai, who is the founder and CEO of Ocean King. So Stephen, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me along. I feel quite honoured to be talking on this show. I've heard a few of your podcasts and you've had some great people on.
Well, that's very kind of you. And another great person in you. So tell us all about Ocean King.
Ocean King. My name's Steve. I'm the prawn king. I sell prawns essentially.
Right.
We started 27 years ago. Myself and my dad driving around in a van selling prawns to takeaways and restaurants. Yeah. And over the years, as we've grown, we now do more than prawns. We're a whole food service, one-stop outfit for catering establishments. Yeah. We do very good prawns, I must admit, and we import them from all over the world. And if you've been to Chinatown, had some of the restaurants, and you might have eaten my prawns.
Fantastic! Oh, that's brilliant. Very good. And what got you into that in the first place then with your father?
Initially, I'd say I didn't have a choice. So it was all. He'd worked for a company similar to ours prior to me graduating from university, and I suppose I was always sculptured into this prawn selling machine.
Okay,
it's all about Evernote.
So I don't. Did you go to your careers advisor at school, and did they say, you know what, you should go into prawns, Stephen?
Yeah. So I think even from a very early age, the concept that was drilled into me was business. Yeah. And I've literally not known anything other than the business. But and I suppose if I wasn't selling prawns, it'd be hard to know what else I can do,
All right, brilliant. So let's fast forward to now then. What does the business look like now? What sort of stage have you got to?
So in the last year, Ocean King's been on a journey. So we were in a van in 2005. We moved over to Loughborough, where we invested in 500 pallet capacity warehouse, 6,500 square feet, and we operated from there 2005 until last year. Right. And last year was the biggest investment we'd ever made in our business or in anything we've done, and it was a £5 million project. Moving from Loughborough into Derby, we moved into 32,000 square feet. warehouse where we are now. And
so that gives an idea of the scale from a van with a few prawns in the back to 6,500 square feet in 2005, and now to 32,000 square feet in 2024. Yeah, quite significant. How big's the team?
Team is 30. And everything's in house. So we've got a sales team, accounts team, warehouse, and drivers. So we are a whole supply, storage, logistics. Yeah. And we import in. We do have a 3-year plan to hit 150 employees now that we're in this new premises.
Right.
In the last year, we've had to put that plan back just a little bit because switching off from one warehouse and straight into another with the limited size team we had. Yeah, there was a lot of learning in that, and right. we're still picking up the pieces now a year on. But we invested in a new ERP system. All new SOPs had to be created to be here, and invested in a lot more middle management.
Right. Yeah. So maybe we'll drill into some of that in a minute. So what makes Ocean King different? I mean, obviously very good prawns by the sounds of it, but what separates you from other people out there that might be supplying food to restaurants?
So I've been trying to find out that recently. I mean, we've been trading 27 years, and it's been the last, how many years? About four years in particular. I've been trying to establish why we do what we do, how we do it, and why we're good at what we do. Because, like I've said before, what we do is prawns. And so there was a significant moment back in 2019 when I saw my father, who was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4. Right. And he was on the hospital bed, and it was right at the height of COVID. I remember it was really difficult getting him into hospital. And he was having chemotherapy, and I was able to go in with him as a translator. And I was just watching him, and he was frail and a bit pale, and he's in his late 60s, basically dying. And he was on his phone, on his iPad, still taking orders from his customers.
Oh, goodness me. Wow. And
that I suppose that was the real significant wow moment for me. That thing, oh my God, why are we doing this? Is what we're doing worth it? Because I suppose, well, obviously we met our father being like that, and what he's drilled into me all my life. But my dad was working as hard as he ever had done at that point, and all I've known my whole life was this relentless hard work.
Yeah.
And I was quite resentful, growing up. I was watching my friends around me. Every school holiday, every bank holiday I was working. When we started Ocean King, we're doing 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, 10 years straight until we moved into Loughborough. But I think it was the first time we ever had any sort of a break. And I remember even as a child, my parents never went to parents' evening, never went to any basketball games, just wasn't involved with it. Me growing up as a child, all they wanted to do was, well, not wanted to do, or all they felt they had to do was work.
Yeah.
And so obviously all this was during COVID, and well, my dad went through the treatment and it was fine. And
oh, great!
So he's in remission now. But yeah, I said. But even up to this very day, I've still never had a family holiday with mum and dad and my brothers.
Right.
And so all that happened during COVID. And the good thing about COVID going into lockdown was that it gave us time away from the business to reflect and talk. And trying to find out about why do we do? Because I've got 3 younger brothers, and we all sat down and said, we can't keep doing this, because otherwise we'll end up like Dad, and not being able to let go of anything.
Yeah.
And so the discussions of how we ended up in the UK even, it's something my parents never talked about. And I just knew, I grew up in the council estate in Runcorn until the age of 13.
Yeah.
But how we came to the UK, I knew I was born in Vietnam, but I don't know the circumstances to why they mentioned something about people, but even to today, well, I was mid to late 30s then, I didn't really have a question to my heritage. It was always work, business, making money.
Yeah.
And so that took me back to a trip to Vietnam about 4 years prior to that, so about 7 or 8 years ago now, when we went to Vietnam and we negotiated our first container of prawns.
Okay.
And it was a 2-week trip, and it was the first time I'd ever gone to Vietnam since I left.
Yeah.
And my whole setup was business. Let's get this deal done.
Yeah.
And so I took my parents with me, and I took them along because they speak fluent Vietnamese, and they understand the culture. And Vietnamese people have a reputation for conning Westerners. And given the size of the deal as well, I didn't want to be in receipt of a container of sawdust when I was expecting prawns. So we sourced the farms, we sourced the processed packages, and the deal was done. It was done so smoothly. It was done in a week. And so it took 2 weeks out there. With second week, nothing to do. My mum said, come on, take me to Saigon. I'll show you around. And it's now known as Ho Chi Minh City, the place I was born. So we went to Ho Chi Minh City. Have you ever been to Far East Asia?
I haven't actually, no.
Anyway, I was walking down this street, and it was hustle and bustle. It's so busy. It's almost like a touristy thing, and people trying to sell everything. I mean, everything from fake Rolexes to silly umbrella hats and all sorts of food. But not only were they selling everything, everybody was selling something, regardless of demographic, regardless of age, regardless of disability. There was a guy, he had one limb, and he was crafting little trinkets out of Coke cans. It was beautiful, but everybody had to work, and they had to work because there's no welfare system there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no NHS, there's no benefit system. So if you don't work and you don't have any money, your next illness would possibly be your last.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're walking down this busy street. This one of the famous things they sell is Café Solaire, which is Vietnamese coffee, a beautiful fresh coffee with condensed milk and ice. Absolutely delicious, and it's one of the national drinks for Vietnam. And I saw this woman; she's selling for 10 cents a cup. And that moment, it's like, wow, oh my God, how many cups of coffee must you sell to stay in your little stall? How many cups of coffee would you have to sell to leave the country? And as I was, all this was going through my head, my mum glances at this lady, and my mum's like screaming like a schoolgirl. Oh my God. Wow. And my mum not been back to Vietnam in 35 years, and this was her best friend and neighbour.
Wow. Yeah.
And for me, I've never seen my mum in that capacity, social. She never had any friends. I mean, she didn't speak English. Well, she speaks very limited English. And so growing up, I remember not having that many friends to go out with, and to see her like a school child was a first for me. By the way, the reason my mum recognised this lady was because the coffee store was opposite this apartment block of apartments where we grew up in. And mum said that's where I lived until I was 18 months old. Mm-hmm. And I was, wow. And I looked at it, and it was one of the most humbling experiences that I've ever seen. The poverty, it was very hard to describe. This place was small. It looked quite dirty, unhygienic. And I remember walking up the stairs and thinking, oh my God, how can anyone can live in this? And then I remember taking a picture of the apartments from outside, and I only noticed afterwards there was a guy having a shower outside. That's the sort of place.
And your mum recognised her friend because
mainly because of the location.
Yeah.
So because that coffee store was literally where, and that neighbour and friend had not left that place since.
Yeah.
So so my mum was late teens, early 20s when she left. But anyway, that night, that lady took us to her favourite restaurant, and we were eating spicy beef noodles. And have you seen the Robin Williams film, Good Morning Vietnam?
Yes.
Where he eats noodles and it's so spicy, it blows his head off. And it was exactly the same. And not only was it really spicy, it was so authentic, it was delicious, but man, it was 38 degrees heat. I was sweating, I was snotting, and they had no napkins on the table. So I said to my dad, how's some napkins? He pointed to an owner. So I waved the owner over and said, can I have a napkin, please? Just shrugged his shoulders at me. And it's quite normal that they don't have napkins. And I was only wearing a t-shirt that day. And so I just wiped all my flea, and just snotted. I wiped it with the sweat off and I carried on eating. A few minutes later, I get a tap on my shoulder and I get handed packet of pocket tissues. They wanted $1 for it, and I was get in.
Yeah.
And I turned around, and it was a child, and he was only about 7 years old. I thought it might have been the owner's son. He wasn't, because he tried to sell the tissue to everybody on our table, then the next table, the next stall, and so on.
Yeah.
And that was another wow moment, because at that time my daughter was only 4 years old, and I was thinking, oh my God, if we'd stayed there, would my daughter be doing this in 4 years? Would I have had to do that to support my family at that age?
Mm.
And then that night, we rode back to the hotel on scooter taxis. My mum on the back of her friends and me, we had the scooter taxi take us back. And I just remember mum jibber-jabbing all night with her friend, going, oh, you got to come back to the hotel, try the coffee, you might learn something incorporated into your business. And the lady, yeah, I'll come and try it. But the lady drove back to the hotel, dropped my mum off at the drive, and then started to turn around and started riding off. My mum shouted to her, hey, you said you're coming for coffee. And the lady said, no, places like that are not for people like me. And so the hotel, it was Hotel de Méridien. And for me, it was only a 4-star business hotel. Going into there for a coffee is no different to going into Starbucks or Costa for a $4 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
She's got to remember that this lady was selling coffee for 10 cents a cup earlier that day. Yeah. And so, that journey, it really was an eye-opener to me for what life could have been like had we stayed in Vietnam.
Mm.
And so that trip, I was asking my parents, why did we leave, blah, blah, blah. They're still just blatantly blanking off and just won't answer direct questions I had about why did we leave, how, what was it like. And so I started to do my own research. And, we don't have time in this podcast to go into the whole of the Vietnam War, but it was a war, North versus South, communists against capitalists, Americans famously losing the war, and then just leaving. When they lost the war, they just left and just left everybody in Vietnam to fend for themselves. And so after the war, oppression was right. Politician leaders, entrepreneurs, religious leaders disappearing overnight. When I say disappear overnight, they weren't locked up in a dark cell. They're taken down to a firing range.
Yeah, and anybody that was seen to be educated were top of the list, weren't they?
Yeah. So doing a bit more research, I found out that my grandparents had actually fled China in 1950s, and that was declared a civil war of some sort. I've not even done research into that as to why, but then ended up in Vietnam, and then there was a start of the Vietnam War, and the stories of my grandfather, my dad's dad, he had a small little business selling underwear, and he'll be riding around Vietnam on a scooter. So I've seen a picture of me standing in a footwell. I was 18 months old, standing in a footwell of a scooter, dad in the middle, mum at the back, and a massive load of underwear on the scooter behind him. And I've got images of him riding around. So my granddad, he passed away when my dad was only 13 years old. My dad was one of 13 siblings. Yeah. And so from that age, my dad took over that business and then had to feed his family.
Wow.
And so anyway, going back to he had me when he was, he must have been about 20. And one night, he was riding around Saigon, me sat in the footwell, mum on the back, going through checkpoints with armed guards on. And usually, my dad said, you just ride through them. One night, they put that, one guard put their hand up, wanting my dad to stop, and assuming wanted to check paperwork, which my dad didn't have any paperwork with him. And so he accelerated through,
right.
And they opened and shot, bang, bang, 2 shots. We're still alive today, so misfiring or warning shots, whatever it be, it was enough for my parents to absolutely crap themselves and sell everything they had for free tickets on a boat.
Right.
And when I say boat, you know, all this is in the news a lot. In today, you see the rubber dinghies and stuff. But it certainly wasn't any luxury cruise liner. There were fishing boats, not designed for people at all. And how can I describe the size? Maybe about 4 times the size of a double-decker bus. 600 people squeezed on. No facilities, no toilet facilities, anything like that. And it was supposed to be a 5-day trip to Malaysia. And my mum rarely talks about this moment, but she did mention that she wouldn't let go of me for the whole duration of this trip. I was sat on it, again, one of my dad's friends described me as, I don't know the word he used, but it was a Vietnamese nickname. I was a crybaby because I just never stopped crying the whole journey. So do you have children?
I do. I've got 3 3 boys, yeah.
3. So do you remember what they were like at 18 months old?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, so all they do, one crawl everywhere, put everything into the mouth.
Yeah.
Well, my mum held me as an 18-month on her lap for the whole duration of this trip. And because the floor was just full of excrement.
Yeah.
And 2 days into this trip, the engine stopped. It was overloaded and it started taking on water and we were just floating. And I don't know how many days it was, but there's food rationing. So the Vietnamese captain didn't class me as a person, survival with fitness. So he rationed food up to the adults. And my mum and dad would get an orange each. They'll peel the skin, eat the orange themselves, and feed me the flesh just to keep me alive.
Right.
Now, I found a news clip of a BBC interview of the captain who then rescued us a few days in. And I only found that clip about 2 years ago. And it was a very emotional clip for me because he quite explicitly explains that although the ships might have survived, the people on board only had about 48 hours to live had he not rescued.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that whole journey was
incredibly harrowing. And then yes, then your parents made it to the UK eventually. So that trip then back for you, yes, must have for your parents must have been Incredibly emotional, because you presumably didn't remember much of that.
I have no memory of it whatsoever. So my parents, so I've had to do the research myself. But going back to your question then, what do we do differently and what our mission is?
Yeah.
Had I said this to you earlier, this is Ocean King, this is what we do, creating opportunities, enriching lives. If I said those 4 words to you at the start of this, you might have thought, oh, here you go. He's had the business coaching.
Yeah.
It just sounds like corporate spiel, creating opportunity, enriching lives. But in reality, my father, myself, had no more opportunities in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And if we speak to that lady or that little boy who was serving us, there was no enriching of their lives. So therefore, we're so grateful for the UK, this country, what it's given us, that opportunity to enrich our lives. But we now look to see what we can do to enrich the lives of the people that walk through the doors of Ocean King. What can we do to make you better?
Amazing. That is fantastic. And there's a few businesses that I've talked to and come across where they've recognized something similar. It doesn't matter whether you're moving prawns or whether you're making widgets. But actually, if you've got that kind of that purpose on, actually, we're trying to make people better in some way, give people opportunity, as you said, and enriching their lives. But I think, one of the other businesses I'm thinking of, they're all about, they say that, they make widgets, but essentially they're about developing their people. That's what their equivalent of your mission is. And everything they do then is about how do we develop our team and our staff and make them better. And fantastic. Okay.
So someone said to me once, I should actually describe my business as a people-focused company who happen to sell prawns.
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? You've come around to, yes, initially it was about making some money by selling some prawns, but it's become much, much bigger than that now, by the sounds of it, isn't it? So
yeah, and that's the only way we're going to get bigger as well, is to empower our people to do. Yeah.
So how, what are some of the complexities in doing what you do, in having a wholesale distribution business of prawns and other foods? What are some of how do you make money? And what are some of the big challenges?
I suppose the challenges we have are no different to business of any shape and size, and it would always be, the focus will always be around the people, getting the right people in the right seat.
Yeah.
And it's about people development and how you can empower them to make the right decisions, and have all your people, Stephen Covey, like all laser focus in the same direction. It's making sure that everybody is in line with what your mission is, what your goals are, and being clear and transparent about what that looks like.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
It's, again, having a good team around me who we will spend focus days developing the strategy. We strictly on one piece of paper, where we obviously define what our mission statement is: creating opportunities to enrich lives, and our core values that go along with that. But then we define what our niche market is, what we do differently, and then define our 10-year strategy, breaking it down, and then come back to 3-year goals.
Yeah.
Then 1 year, then we have a quarterly rocks.
Brilliant. So you're using the kind of, is this the EOS methodology? Is that?
It is. Yes.
Okay. Brilliant. And we do something similar with the businesses that we work with. So great. So you've got the longer term picture, and you've got the right the way down to the quarterly, and then the the rocks, as you say, as it's called within that system, and everybody's got their own actions within it. So how are you? And are you running the full EOS system with team management, team meetings?
Yeah, our level 10 meetings. So we're trying our best to do it, and it all sounds great on paper, and we all have to agree to a structure in how the whole company works, and it's true. In books it says it is one structure or no structure, and the whole company tries to stick to that as well as we can. But it's about how we cascade these messages down to everybody. Everybody walks through the door. What are our core values? We hire and fire by our core values. We do people analysis, and that's how we do it.
Okay, no, very good, excellent. So take us through, some of the. So you obviously initially you were going back right to the beginning. You were out with your dad with a van. Then you had you got to buying the first warehouse or having that first 6,500 square foot warehouse and beyond. So what are some of the key kind of inflection points within the business over that time?
Reflection points.
Inflection points.
Inflection.
Sorry, the inflection. So in terms of with some of the step changes, the things that you'd say were the sort of milestones within the business.
So structurally, each time, when we moved that business, it was a big milestone. I suppose as we grew, we didn't really have the capacity to grow as a business. So it was myself, my father, and as each brother left university, did join the company.
Yeah. And
we were hiring people, but we couldn't understand why the business plateaued. I think we plateaued 5 years after Loughborough, so about 2010, and we couldn't see the reason why. Although the business organically grew a certain percentage, we couldn't get rapid growth.
Right.
And then obviously we couldn't see it, but I suppose anybody looking at us would be asking, so you're the managing director and we were taking orders from our customers. We were handwriting our invoices in the freezer on a forklift, receiving goods, storing goods, and then picking goods. We were also doing deliveries. We were just so hands-on with every aspect of the business.
Yeah.
I have a HGV Class 2 license. I have a reach truck license and a counterbalance license. And to say I can do absolutely anything inside our warehouse, I really can.
Yeah.
So when you talk about these inflection points, it was hard to pick them up because we were just so ingrained with the firefighting.
Yeah.
The spinning of plates continuously, thinking, "Oh God, this order's not right. That's not right." And
so what?
And then,
go on. What changed? What
changed?
What made it change?
Well, firstly, I didn't understand why I couldn't employ people to work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why? I could do it. Why can't you?
Yeah.
And so I think 1 year, and I quite proudly say we've never advertised or done any marketing our whole life, and we never had any PR behind us, and everything we've had to do ourselves. And I just remember I just randomly applied for awards 1 year, and we were runners up, and from that, getting a little bit of exposure, I was approached from other business consultants or just people, other business owners even.
Yeah.
And I suppose that was the biggest mindset change I had ever since Ocean King started. So that was a good few years on. Let me think, 2017-ish. So almost 20 years on from Ocean King started in a man in a van, employing a few people that I sought external consultants. And when I said, say external consultants, I actually joined Vistage, which is a group of peer-to-peer entrepreneurs who were able to sit down and talk about things. So I don't want to, not trying to sell Vistage or anything like that, but basically it put me in a group of 11 other entrepreneurs of varying size business, completely different genres of business, the different categories, anything from window manufacturer to cleaning company to financial wealth management company, lots of different types of businesses. And we all had one thing in common in that we've run relatively successful businesses. And when I say successful, basically we survived more than 5 years.
Yeah.
I suppose in today's terms, yeah. So, and it's always cliche, and when people say it's lonely at the top, but when you are a business leader or owner of business, there are not many people you could sit down with and have a chat about what's going on or seek advice from. I suppose with me, I'd have my brothers and my dad, but there was only one philosophy with them, and that was always work to get yourself out of anything.
Yeah.
So when I met up with these other 11 business owners, it was just a relief that any problem that you might have, be it people, be it funding, any sort of emergency IT crisis that you might have, there's always someone who's been there and done a little element of it. Yeah. And who was it that said, Alex Ferguson said, I think he said, you're managing the team and you're looking at them from the sideline or in the stands, you could see the whole picture of what's going on with the whole football team rather than running around the field trying to direct what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
And to speak with other people from that, from business, then you could always look at someone else's business and give guidance. And I suppose in business, it's not like school where you get a certificate or some sort of pat on the back. You do well with. How do you define whether you're doing well? Yes, you can have these awards and stuff, but there's no actual marker to say, okay, you are now qualified to give someone else advice.
Yep.
But in reality, if you've spoken to a bank manager and had to negotiate certain terms, you could share that knowledge with someone else around that table who is in a similar situation.
Yeah.
This is what I've done. This is how this might help you.
Yeah. Or even this is what I did. Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so how has the business changed since then?
I suppose it was to change with the I'll say the senior leaders, me and my brothers, in that I am not I see my children lots now.
Yeah.
So I don't miss a single football match that my son plays at. He's 9 years old. I'm actually manager of this football team. You can imagine how much time that takes. Yeah. I'm a governor. I'm chair of finance at my children's school.
Yeah.
I'm ambassador for young enterprises for East Midlands. Well, so I'm Entrepreneur of the Year for Great British Awards. I'm Entrepreneur of the Year for East Midlands.
Yeah.
East Midlands Chambers. I'm Business Person of the Year for Leicester Business Live.
Yeah.
And it's just, I have all this time now to actually do other things other than being in the thick of the business. And it's the same with my brothers. So.
Yeah. So what's enabled that? What has enabled that to happen? So what's the transformation in the business then that's made that happen?
So it was the really difficult thing of taking us out of the day to day, and being able to work on the business and entrusting your people to do all those elements much better than you can.
And if you were talking to somebody else, then that's where you were when you were literally doing everything within the business, and your brothers were as well. If you were talking to them now, how would you tell them to do that?
I still believe that work ethics and doing those hours has put us to where we are. So it's not letting go of those little procedures that has got you to where you are, but it's being able to look at that from a higher level, and you can, I suppose, empower the people to do the job for you and have that strategic goal of. And
that's what I'm trying to get is how you did that, because it's a transition we have to make, but you can't just flick a switch. You can't suddenly say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to work in the business anymore. I'm just going to work on it. You can't just do that. You've got to find a way to transition to it. So what was the key things that you would that looking back on it you would advise to others to be able to make that transition?
The first thing I did was it's the simple matrix of putting all the things I do in the company and identifying what I actually like doing, what I was good at doing, and just keeping that element of what I liked, what I was good at, and then delegating absolutely everything else.
Excellent. So finding, so looking at those, saying, what is it that I need to keep hold of? But if I don't want to be doing that element, so if I don't want to be driving the forklift around the warehouse anymore, how do I find a way that somebody else can do that? So is there somebody else that I can delegate it to, or do we need to find a different way to do it? Do we need somebody new coming in or some other way? But that starting point was that sitting down and actually capturing what it is that you do, identifying the things that are important that you continue to do and that you enjoy doing, but then obviously, therefore, by default, the ones that you don't need to continue to do.
Yeah. And so I suppose that goes for absolutely every job you create within the company. So you have these lists of duties, and the type of character I am, I'm a more salesy person. I could talk to people, but I'm not a numbers person. I don't like sitting down with the detail. And so, but there are people in this world who thrive on numbers and due diligence and doing all that stuff. And so for absolutely every duty that you have, there are people who excel in what they do.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be great if you had everybody in your workplace who love what the duties that they're doing and are good at what they're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And being very clear about, therefore, that essentially what are the duties and who is the, and you mentioned, I think it was actually before we press record, but you talked about, actually, no, it wasn't. You talked about having the right people in the right seats. So in order to do that, it's like, what are all the duties that need to be done, and who's currently doing it, and are they the right person to be doing it? And if not, so if your name's against everything, then that's probably not where we want to be. So how do we transition to something else? Okay. So, and you also mentioned there something which is with every person you recruit. There's a way of looking at recruitment, which is, as a business owner, what's the next? If I recruit somebody, what are they going to take off of me? That's because at the end of the day, it's kind of been said a lot, but we want to make ourselves redundant. That's essentially, as a business owner, we want to make sure that we're not having to have the license to be able to drive the truck, the forklift around. So how do we employ people, or if we do, what are they going to take off of our plate that allows us, therefore, to focus on the bigger things that we need to?
Yeah. So when it comes to employing people, though, I mentioned core values, but I didn't actually go into them. So we have 5 core values, which are people focus, us before me, do it right, be your best, and own it. And we have to live and breathe these core values. And the way I chose these core values was literally look at a particular character within our business who are doing business as it was.
Yeah.
And when I saw my dad on that hospital bed, still taking orders as customers, there's nothing more than defines all 5 of those core values in what he did.
Yeah.
And that has to run throughout everything we do. If you do not display these 5 core values, you are not a fit for a company. We're not fit for you. Everyone has their own values, and there'd be a company for everyone out there. So
I love those core values, and one of the reasons is they resonate is that they're similar in a way. We have a set of 3 non-negotiables, and the first one of those is do the right thing by others and yourself, but do the right thing essentially. Do your best with everything that you've got, which is not necessarily the same as doing as perfection, but do the best with what you have, and proactively take responsibility and ownership for stuff. So similar kind of ethos, I think, going on there potentially.
Yes. Good.
So I think we could probably barely scratch the surface, I think, really. We could probably talk for hours. It's absolutely fascinating, and your backstory is absolutely fascinating. Are you all right for a couple of quick-fire questions, and then we draw it to a close?
Okay.
Because I think, otherwise, our listeners might.
I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and maybe what we need is a part 2. But yeah, we try and keep it to about an hour. So if you could go back to your younger self, then, right, and you can choose when that would be, whether it's when younger self when you started the business, or whether it's a different point. But what would your advice be to the young Stephen Tighe?
I would say I wouldn't change a thing, but in hindsight, I actually would. What I've done recently is a lot of self-learning, a lot of reading, self-help books, and understanding business on a slightly broader scale, and understanding people. It comes from these books that I've read, and I suppose telling the little Stephen Tighe to read this, you'll find it quite. It didn't have Audible back in the day, and he's not a very good reader. But it's about learning. Absorb as much as you can to be the best that you can. Brilliant. And even I'll be reading books or listening to books for the rest of my life now. It's been such a big changer to absorb information. Yeah. So
if you had to pick 1 or 2 then of those books, which ones would jump out at you that you'd recommend others to read?
Simon Sinek. I really like the why. Yeah. I love the book Traction. Do you know him and on any of his? Patrick Lencioni, any of his 5 Dysfunction. They're beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah, the Patrick Lencioni, yes. Was it 5 Dysfunctions of 5 behaviors? Well, what is it? Is it the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, or is it the 5 dysfunctions of a
dysfunction of it? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, Shoe Dog. I love Shoe Dog as well.
Okay. Good. Any What about technology? Any particular bits of tech that you use on a daily basis?
I may say I'm quite gadgety. I do like all sorts of tech. I suppose the question that really leads into AI and that.
Okay.
And whether I'd love to embrace it more than what I actually use it for now. When I write an email or a text response in, I'm told that I'm quite harsh or direct with the way I reply sometimes. So ChatGPT softens my tone, but I wish I could use it to analyze my customer, behaviors and usage, and to use it as a sales tool to generate more sales. It's exciting, but it's just knowing where to look, what platforms to use. It's everything's so new. It's hard to imagine. There's so many companies that have taken off, but who do you trust as a real expert in what's going on? When in reality, I've probably read a few books and become an expert myself. I reckon.
And the experiences you've been through, as you said, you don't have to be an expert in everything. You've got specific experience and knowledge that might be relevant to somebody else for that same stage that they're at or the same challenge that they've got. What's your most successful way of finding new customers? You mentioned that you didn't really advertise and things. So how do you grow? How do you find new customers?
Genuinely, I don't actually go out to find new customers. We do have customers knocking on us. There's a growth plan that eventually I'll have to do some cold calling or leaflet dumps or whatever it may be. But we've been lucky for 27 years that it is word of mouth that customers come to us. So we're primarily based in the Midlands, but painstakingly, and don't tell my customers the problem. Don't listen to this anyway. The Chinese, they're very authentic Chinese, but we have to painstakingly go down to Plymouth once a week. And it's a good, 6 or 7 hour drive in the trucks of our drivers, because one of our customers moved down to Plymouth and insisted that we went down there. But we told him it wasn't financially viable to do that. And so what he did was get us 10 customers himself that we supplied. And then they got more customers. And so now we're down there and supplying about 30 or 40 shops, and it keeps on growing. And it's a pain for me because there's no bloody way to go. If anything happens, then we'll have to send another truck to sort it out. So
you'll have to get one of your brothers to set up a warehouse down.
Well, that is one of the plans. But we'll have 3 of these warehouses that we have now in silos around. But business generated purely from word of mouth.
But that's how powerful is that? As that strength of that word of mouth. That not only does he want to keep using you when he goes down to Plymouth, but that when you object, he actually finds you a load of customers to make it worth your while. It's like fantastic. All right, brilliant. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic talking with you, Stephen. And as I say, I think we probably should have a part 2 at some point. But for now, if people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Ocean King, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oceanking.co.uk, or follow me on TikTok. Actually, that's how up to date and savvy I am. Stephen Ty, all one word, or Stephen.Ty on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Yeah, I've been trying to create a few videos recently.
So what will people find on TikTok if they look for you on TikTok?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite ones is how to attend a business event with just a jacket.
Okay. I shall go and have a look for that then. Brilliant. Fantastic. Stephen, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.